selecting my SQL Server 2014 Express playlist. The point of this video series is speed, brevity, and clarity. The goal is, in under 10 minutes, you have the outline to complete the lesson. Each video will have a corresponding blog post. You can find a link to my WordPress blog in the video's description below. Where appropriate, I will redirect you to my GitHub account to download files and save you time. So, this is database management is what this video is about. And I just want to make sure we cover some terms and align them with things you're familiar with. So, each database server, which you've already installed in the last video, is like a file cabinet. And then each database on a server is like a file drawer. And each table within a database is like a file in a file drawer. And that's the one that actually has the data, not just the structure. So we're going to talk about the databases themselves. Create a database with the SSMS user interface, SQL Server Management Studio's interface. You can use the GUI to do it. You can create a database with Profiler. In other words, you use Profile to record creating a database, and when it's done, you can steal it, and you can make a database using T-SQL. After that, we're going to back up and restore a database, so if you ever need to recover the data from a point in time, something got deleted, you didn't get it back, there's no log, you need to find it, you restore that database someplace else, pull the data back out, put it back in the original database, you're good to go. Another choice that you can do when you move a database is you can detach the database, which is the MDF and LDF files, then move them and then reattach them to another server. So the first thing we're going to do is start up SQL Server Management Studio. I've got it marked right here, SQL Server 2014 Management Studio. We're going to start that up. And once it's started, you can see it's trying to connect to our server. In this case, this is the computer name, this is the SQL Server instance, and we're going to say connect. And we've started up SQL Server Management Studio. If we take a look at the databases in there, there aren't a lot. The only two in here are for SQL Server reporting services. We're going to make our new one. So the first way to do it is to use the GUI, which is what we're using right now. Right mouse button, click Databases, pick New Database. And it's started up. We're going to use us as the default owner, and the name that we're going to give it is Contact DB. DB for database. You don't have to do the DB, it's an optional thing. And we'll say OK. Now Contact DB has been created. That's the container. So one of the analogies that we used earlier was each database server is like a file cabinet. Each database on a server is like a file drawer in the file cabinet. So this is like a file drawer. And the tables within it are going to be the containers that actually have real data. We don't have any of those created yet. A view is a either vertical or horizontal slice joining one or more tables. What that means, and I'll show you this later with our three different tables, is joining them together and retrieving information with select columns. And then programmability, the two core ones are stored procedures and functions. If you know the definition of a function, it returns a value. Same thing here in SQL Server. Definition of a stored procedure is something that does a series of steps, and just like in other programming languages, they're very similar. This next part, what we're going to do is we're going to use Profiler to record us creating a database, and then we're going to be able to steal the code, the T-SQL code, from the Profiler so that we can create scripts on our own. So let's get ready to do that. First thing we'll want to do is start up Profiler, SQL Server 2014 Profiler. I'll create a new trace to the current database. I'm going to make it a wide open trace, so we can just hit run. That starts running right away. Go back to here, create a new database, call the database test3, so it's unique to find. We'll say OK, and it was as simple as that. Test3 is now created. Go back to the Profiler, turn it off, and if we look, we'll find the create database statement. Here's the beginning of it when it started. Here's the end. So we can take this code here, copy it, go back into SQL Server Management Studio, create a new query, paste it, and then do Control F for find, and we're going to have it search for test3, do a quick replace, and make that test4, and replace each one of them. And it's good to put a go at the end of the statement. And we can click execute. We can check our T-SQL to make sure it's okay by parsing it first. And command complete successfully is perfect. Click on execute. It'll run and finish. Now we're going to go back to the database, refresh it, and we'll see there's now a test4, which totally awesome. Now let's take a look at the properties of the database. Couple of things I want to show you. First one was this collation sequence. In prior videos we talked about this is the default collation sequence so that it can, if you do a search or a like, it's not case sensitive. Database owner. Let's go back to files for a second. So you can see where it's storing the database. The MDF file where the data is, and the LDF file where the log file is. We'll talk about transactions in the future. Let's go to options. The recovery model for this is simple. That's important for when you're backing up and restoring a database. And you can see that the SQL Server version is 2014. So that's it. This next segment of the video, what we're going to do is we're going to back up and restore a database. So we're going to use test4 for our experiment. Currently test4 doesn't have a table, so I'm going to create a very simple table which we're going to make disappear. So the first thing to do is back up test4. If we go into tasks, we see backup. We can see where it's going to save it. It's going to save it in the SQL Server directory. I'm going to remove that. I'm going to add in the downloads folder, which is what we're kind of used to. So C:\downloads, and we're going to call this test4 for evening backup. And we'll say OK. And it's completed because of course there's nothing in it. Now we're going to add something. Here we go. So we're going to add a new table. And I'll call this person ID with an integer. Allow nulls because it's not that smart. Person. So now person should show up, right? If we refresh the tables, there's person. So we made a backup prior to adding person. So if we restore the database backup, person's going to disappear. So we're going to go to tasks, we're going to go to restore database, and we'll say OK. And now if we look at the tables, it's there, but once we refresh, it's gone again because we restored it from the earlier point in time. So for test4, what I've done is created a table, a very simple one column, and populate it with 2 people. That way we can use it for the test of detaching and reattaching the database, and should prove to you that we added somebody and then we detached and put it back. So we'll see how that works. So we're going to right mouse button click, and we need to shut this down to make sure all the connections are free. We're going to go to test4, tasks, detach, drop any existing connections, update the statistics, say OK. Test4 is magically gone. We're going to go and navigate to where test4 was. SQL and program files, Microsoft SQL Server, MS SQL 12, SQL Express 2014, MSS SQL data. Here's test 4. So let's make a copy of it, and we're going to copy it to the downloads folder. So now we've got a copy of it. So let's restore it. By restore, I should say attach. So there's test 4. It's been restored. We're going to script it out. See our 2 people. We're going to add a 3rd and a 4th. I'm hitting F5 to run it instead of click execute, and there they are. So now, get rid of that. Pick this person again. Tasks, detach. Test 4 is gone. We're going to copy test 4. Overwrite the files. I'm going to go back in and attach the files. And if we script it out, we should be back to 2 people. Now we're back to Bob and Frank. So we've attached and reattached the databases. And this concludes this segment for this video. So thank you very much. On to the next one.